Hello, everyone. My name is Catherine Harnish, Principal at Leap Forward Library Consulting, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to Taking a Practice Trip, 3 Problems, 3 Solutions, the third webinar in our Orienteering for Libraries and Librarians series. As Nanette and I work through the 3 use cases that demonstrate the power of the PraXis transformation engine, we came to a very clear conclusion. We have a lot of content to share in this final presentation. There's so much content, in fact, that we became concerned about giving the use cases short shrift by squeezing them into an hour-long session. As a result, we've altered our approach to this webinar. Rather than hosting a live session, as originally planned, we've broken the content up into 4 sessions, this introduction and 1 for each of our 3 use cases, and recorded them so that you can watch them at your convenience. We know that adding more content means that you need to find some more time, and this gives you the flexibility to view the recordings when you're ready. All of these recordings will be posted to the IMT website under the Resources menu option, along with a copy of the slide decks and speaker's notes for each. As always, we invite questions and comments via the Talk to Us link, also on the IMT site. So, let's kick things off with a quick round of introductions. I'm joined today by my colleagues from Information Management Team, Nanette Knott, Principal at IMT, and Kathy Sackman, Lead Analyst. Together, we're working on solutions to help libraries ensure ongoing visibility and viability in a web-based world. Nanette and Kathy bring extensive experience with product and content development, architecture, ontology, and modeling services for publishers, libraries, and their partners. Well, I've spent the past 18 years in various ILS product management positions at ProQuest, OCLC, and Ex Libris. One of the common themes of our 2 previous webinars is that the time for action is now. We no longer have time to wait for everything to be settled, for everything to be perfect. As Ivan Turgenev wrote, if we wait for the moment when everything, absolutely everything, is ready, we shall never begin. The library community continues to debate a lot of issues at its conferences and on its listservs, many of which are minutiae, academic points, things that really don't add up when we analyze the cost of our business, especially when measured against the opportunities that we're losing. Faster than we might like, the sands of time are slipping through the hourglass, and libraries are getting perilously close to being left behind forever. Therefore, we need to pack our bag and get ready to head out into our future, being sure that we include some of the concepts that we've discussed in our previous sessions. Leadership, a team that includes expertise beyond the libraries, and those things that I've proposed make libraries special. But we also need to pack tools that will help us along our journey. When we pack for a hiking or a camping trip, there are lots of things we might need. A fish scaler, a knife, tweezers, a screwdriver, a corkscrew, because you never know when you might need a glass of wine, and more. If we pack all of these things, though, I find myself paraphrasing Roy Scheider in Jaws. We're going to need a bigger bag. We'll be weighed down by everything that we need to drag along. At the same time, we can't just pack a screwdriver and hope that it can scale a fish, cut a rope, remove a splinter, and open a bottle of wine, although yes, I have tried that last task in a moment of desperation. A single tool just won't do everything we need. What we really need is a Swiss Army knife, a platform essentially that includes all of the specific tools that we may need, tools that can be folded in and out, used when and as necessary. Each of these tools fits together into a unified whole, yet each remains independent of the others. Which leads us to the notion of microservices, which are the software industry's equivalent of a Swiss Army knife. Microservices are a series of fine-grained services designed to support business capabilities that are distributed and organized as functional domains. Small, modularized, and easily exchangeable components defined by business managers who understand existing and future business processes parallel the small, modularized, easily exchangeable components of the Swiss Army knife. I love this graphic as a way of thinking about microservices, especially since I've been on a cupcake kick of late. I know that's a little bit behind the trend, but here microservices are discussed from a system architecture standpoint. compared with monolithic and traditional service-oriented architecture, or SOA, development models. In pre-SOA architectures, we have the equivalent of spaghetti. Everything is intertwined, and a change in one place will affect the entire pile of pasta. Service-oriented architectures, which came to prominence in the early 2000s, allow some decoupling, but the components must still fit into an overall design. We can cut the pie up into individual pieces, but there's still a pie. And microservices are like cupcakes. Each is completely independent of the others. We can develop and implement completely autonomous components that fit together without prior coordination. It's fruitful to think not just about the technical architecture of our systems in this microservices way, but the functional components of our library systems as well. The monolithic systems that we have today, and yes, even those next generation systems are monoliths with technical and functional dependencies throughout the environment. They keep us locked into predefined processes, many of which are based on print workflows. Everything is so tightly coupled that we don't have the flexibility to customize to local needs. To replace, for example, the library's ordering and invoicing services with the university's ERP, or to publish our collection data into non-library spaces. And a small change in one place triggers a cascade of unintended consequences. Things break far too frequently. For this reason, our ILS providers are unable to respond effectively to industry changes or to requests from their customers that support clear and increasingly urgent business needs. So, if we're to think about library systems in this way, what microservices do we need? What are the functional groupings of services, all of which are derived from our definitions in the last session, and build against a common backbone that support essential library activities? Well, first we need a set of services that record, track, and publish the unique identities of things that we collect or aggregate, what Nanette and I have been calling identity management in our definitions. As we discussed in our last webinar, as we move forward, we need to shift from authority control, from names as isness indicators, to managing electronic representations of real people, where names are one of potentially many identity labels. Microservices can give libraries the richness and detail necessary not only to uniquely identify an individual, but to position that individual in a web of context. That context may be what I've called intellectual context, relating subjects, things like concepts, places, events, and in this case people, to resources. Or it may be use context, the roles and affiliations, some directly assigned and some by virtue of a relationship to a library or other organization that have bearing on my use of library-provided resources. Second, we need services to create and expose context that positions our collected resources in appropriate intellectual settings, what we've defined as context management. Here we need to step away from our flat file and relational database systems and dated approaches to library metadata creation to build new micro-solutions for aggregating and enhancing all types of metadata. We need to incorporate the work, whether manual or automated, of linking resources, identities, and concepts in a larger web of relationships, thereby establishing intellectual connections that a user may or may not make on his or her own. This is how we achieve discovery for modern users in a modern world. We need to build and monitor our physical collections with what we've called inventory management systems in our definitions. Here's a prime example of where we can build around our legacy systems in the short term, relying on existing functionality for the work of managing our physical collections. Over time, we can keep what continues to work well while reducing the bloat in these processes, replacing components of today's overly complex ILS functionality with a much more streamlined set of microservices that support an IMS. And finally, we need services to track permissions to electronic resources and subsequently facilitate access to our aggregated resources, what we've defined as rights and access management. While we've purchased lots of systems that are supposed to make this work a snap, managing rights and access is still something with which we struggle. Rather than implementing complex and expensive systems that don't really do more than what we can achieve in Excel, we should look to integrating readily available components, an Onyx distribution module from a partner like Amazon, or a publisher's web authentication service that can be combined to provide a cost-effective solution. With microservices like these, libraries can create an engine that supports end-to-end user workflows, discovery to acquisition to delivery to usage analysis for e-resources. Which is where PraXis by IMT comes in. I've partnered with IMT to bring the power of this transformation engine, a federated infrastructure for content and metadata with an accompanying set of microservices, to libraries to unlock, aggregate, and enable libraries to enrich their data. The microservices included in PraXis offer a bridge from where we are today to where we want to be in the future. They connect us to our legacy systems, where we're not quite ready to abandon them, while simultaneously enabling innovative solutions to new business requirements. They connect us not only to the data that we stored in our library applications, but the wider web of data beyond the siloed context of the library. PraXis is lightweight enough and discrete enough that as our domain changes, and change it will, we can revise or extend its component services and make changes based on new needs, new user requirements, without incurring exorbitant overhead. It connects data within and outside of the library to provide a comprehensive set of solutions that increase resource discoverability and usage, decrease costs, and increase collaboration of various types. As we move forward, Nanette is going to provide some concrete examples of how PraXis does all of this, but first I want to focus on the benefits of PraXis, to talk about the destinations towards which we need to be charting courses. And the first of these is discoverability. We need to promote the discoverability of our resources, where our users are, in the ways that match expectations informed by the larger web. Increasing discoverability in turn increases usage, which ultimately increases the library's visibility and viability. Our monolithic systems, even when decoupled from library discovery services, don't support this objective as fully as necessary. In fact, I would argue that library discovery platforms are solutions in search of an audience. Our novice users rely on Google for their needs. Rightly or wrongly, the reality is that they are not coming to the library or to its discovery interface. And our advanced users need far more richness than is supported in these overly simplified systems. Both groups of users are, in effect, going around the library to get what they need. With PraXis microservices, we can create, enrich, and publish data into a myriad of spaces in ways that support modern discovery, connecting users with our resources regardless of how and where they begin their work. With PraXis, you can pack up library services and meet your users where they are in all the places they are. A second benefit of PraXis is cost control. By aggregating both content and metadata against that single backbone, we can simplify and streamline complex workflows, making our current activities far less labor-intensive. Further, we're able to allow computers to do the things that they do well. So much of what we do in libraries today is work that computers could do just as well, if not better, with greater accuracy and speed than people do. This isn't to say that people don't have a role, of course. There are things that we as librarians do uniquely, and our focus should be on these things, things that deliver more value to our constituents. Or as Nanette would say, we can guide our horse down the trail with our spurs rather than allowing the horse, in this case our data, to ride us, taking us down the trails of its choosing. We can also reduce costs from a deployment standpoint with PraXis. You don't need to purchase a monolithic solution that does everything. You don't need to purchase and pack all of those tools in your bag. Instead, you can buy the microservices that you need when you need them, directly matching your system's spending to fulfillment of your library's business needs. Finally, PraXis enables new kinds of collaboration, both across libraries and with our non-library partners. With the diversity of library types and communities served, we have a broad set of business cases that need to be addressed as we move forward. And PraXis can respond to these, creating a series of library-defined services that can be deployed not just for a single library, but to the benefit of other libraries with similar business needs. In PraXis's microservices approach, With its emphasis on business managers identifying current and anticipated business needs, allows the domain experts to define the needs while allowing their partners, the technologists, to determine how best to decompose functionality into microservices, whether purpose-built or leveraged from outside of library. Sure, as Nanette and I have noted in our previous presentations, as OCLC and others point out, this will mean putting on some good rubber boots and wading through some deep waters. But it's worth it, because this is the path by which we create new collaborations that connect the data that the library manages to the business needs of the library, to the technology used to deliver the service. When we first launched PraXis earlier this fall, we had a lot of questions about what it is, a desire to have more concrete answers to the what's and how's of PraXis. And one of the challenges that we've had is in explaining how something so small can do such big things, how something provides so much flexibility that it can answer any number of library needs. Like the Swiss Army knife, is it a knife or is it a corkscrew? Yes. PraXis solves multiple business problems with its microservices. At this point, we'll pick up our exploration of these three objectives, discoverability, cost control, and collaboration, in our second recording, which delves deeper into use case number 1, metadata aggregation and enrichment. Nanette, lead us through it.